Hi folks, Councillor Gusti here, Andrew. So I've been asked to do hustings by some of you, and it was a wee bit late in the day, so we've not been able to do that. But I thought this would be something that would be worthwhile doing and give you a wee insight into our candidates for this by-election. Today I'm with Simon Jones, our first runner-up from the SNP. I've got Simon today for about half an hour, and we're going to go through some of the basic questions that you maybe all have in your mind. Because I'm politically active, it's not for me to cross-examine the candidates, it's just to give a platform for you to see exactly what they're all about. So the goal today is to provide an uninterrupted platform for candidates to clearly articulate their vision and priorities for Stranraer Millennium area. Each of the policy areas, they will have approximately 5 minutes of discussion. I'll have my phone here with a lap timer on. At 5 minutes I'll ask the candidate to come to a conclusion, and this isn't, as I say, this isn't for me to cross-examine. As a sitting councillor, it wouldn't be appropriate. It's to give the candidates their chance to speak to you, the members of the public. So Simon, welcome to the show, and going into the first question, what is your overarching vision for the economy of Stranraer and what are the key strategies would you implement to promote local growth and address economic challenges over the next 5 years?
Before I start, I would just say, while it's not for Andrew to cross-examine me, everyone else is more than welcome to come up to me in the street and ask me what I will do about any issues you have. So, moving on to what I would do about health.
So we're on the economy, sorry.
Are we on the economy? Right, sorry.
I'll restart my timer.
Right, okay. So the loss of the ferries was brutal. The Stranraer area's gross added value, which measures productivity, fell steadily from £280 million in 2011 to £190 million in 2021. That's 90 million. So we lost almost a third of the gross added value, how wealthy the town is. In recent years, there's been some progress on redevelopment. Water sports, the Oyster and Skiffy festivals, the George Hotel, Creative Stranraer, and great work by the Stranraer Development Trust and the Millennium Centre, where we're sitting now. There's a transport hub in the pipeline, and perhaps one day we'll get the train service back to Dumfries. If I get this job, as one of your councillors for the next 18 months, I intend to bring a community building approach. Grant applications, local place planning, community empowerment, participation budgeting, and community wealth building are all ways to build and renew an area to bring in prosperity, beauty, and happiness. All of this is based on community involvement, a virtuous cycle of prosperity, opportunity, and development. Now that's all rather nerdy, so let me say it simply. Bringing money in, getting people involved, building pride of place, healing sadness, and creating hope. Grant-funded projects are not the whole economy, but they're achievable, can deliver quick wins, and can make a start towards building the rest of the economy. I think hospitality is a very key part of our new offer. We can't revert to the ferries, we can't go back to some of the things that were here before, but what we need to do is discover new ways to make money in the town. And one of the amazing things we've got here are the natural location. We've got the loch, we've got the hills, we've got the beautiful villages around, and we've got the amazing historic Stranraer town. I know that there's been a push towards more international visitors by the South of Scotland Destination Alliance, and they're looking at developing reasons to come here that are tied to experiences, so someone can come here not just to take a photo of the castle, but to maybe meet someone who's their distant cousin, or to discover where their great-grandfather lived. I think that's really positive and that's really doable, and that can really put Stranraer on the map. We can also build an economy based on remote working. Stranraer is an amazing place to live and raise a family. It's cheap property, it's a lovely town, the kids have got space to run and play. But we need the jobs to be here. We could build that up by encouraging remote jobs, but only if we have first-class internet backed up with redundancies so that people don't lose their signal when there's a storm. That requires investment, but it's so worth it. I want to see a Stranraer that is booming, a Stranraer that doesn't have empty buildings on the high street because businesses are clamouring to get in and start making money hand over fist, which perhaps one day they will do again on Stranraer High Street. How am I doing for time?
You have 1 minute and 10 seconds left.
Good. So what we can do with the economy is there's good stuff happening. We need to make sure that where things are working well, the council doesn't get in the way. There's stuff that can be brought in, and particularly there's basically a lot of grant money out there, and we can apply for that. A lot of the redevelopment we've seen is based on grant money, but there are grants that no one ever applies for. Grant money that doesn't get allocated. And we can be much more vigorous in finding those projects. That's not something I can do alone. That's something I need people in Stranraer to step up and do with me. But if you have an idea of something you'd like to do, if you'd like to replicate something that's amazing somewhere else that you visited, then that's something I can provide the technical help. I can fill in forms, I can help with the grant applications, and I can help with local place planning and that kind of thing.
Simon, that's us on to the 5 minutes, if you'd like to sum up.
So in short, the economy needs someone, a councillor who will fight for the money that's been promised for the waterfront, but it also will benefit from my specific skill set of being able to raise grant money.
That's all that, Simon. Moving on to section 2 of tonight's themes, which is Stranraer and social care. What are your priorities for improving the delivery of health and social care services in Stranraer and the Rins, and how would you ensure better support for vulnerable residents and carers in our community?
My number one priority is the return of maternity services to Stranraer for low-risk births. The assumption that people will be fine driving to Dumfries when close to giving birth is flawed. It ignores people's sense of pride of place, and it assumes everyone has dependable family to drive them there. There's a well-known story locally of a woman who had to stop in a lay-by, and she had to give birth in the lay-by, and she described it as scary and horrible. That should not happen. That's not fair. And even the ones where there isn't a dramatic headline crisis like that, imagine the worry, the stress on these young mothers as they drive to hospital, hoping that they're not going to give birth before they make it there. This just should not happen. In the survey they did on this last year, the community wanted the maternity unit to be reopened, and the health professionals felt it shouldn't. I do understand that reopening it costs money that will be taken from somewhere else in the health service, but you have to listen to the community on this, because it goes beyond health. It goes towards pride of place, it goes towards feeling safe, it goes towards wanting your town to be a town where you have access to basic human resources. I think there's a problem in government that everything tends to be focused on the central areas, the big cities, London first particularly, and that's because it's more economic. If you put a bus service in the middle of London, 1 million people use it. Put a bus service in out here, not many people use it. So when they look at health, when they look at social care, it's like, well, we could put it there, but it's expensive and people have to drive off and it takes time and money. And so we get underfunded because there's not a national commitment to care about the whole country. There's a chasing of economic growth, which means that the outlying areas get forgotten. And that's a false economy, because if you allow your towns and you allow your rural areas to decline, that costs money. You end up with depressed places where you have worse health outcomes. After maternity service, there's a number of other things that need a bit of help. Dentistry is in crisis. In Stranraer East, only 58% of P1 pupils showed satisfactory dental health. So that's 42% of pupils haven't got great teeth. P1 is like 6-7 years old. That's just not right. The Scottish national average is 75%, so we're 17% below that. So a big chunk of pupils here are way below average. And again, it's this whole thing about invest in the whole country. Don't concentrate your investment in the more urban areas. Tooth decay in very young children will lead to increasing issues throughout their lives. We've failed them now. That tooth, like once they've lost their baby tooth, that tooth doesn't get better. And if they have damaged teeth now, they'll have damaged teeth at 20, 30, 50, 80, permanently damaged. We need to make sure that dentists can come here, that dentists feel that they can make money and have a good life here, and that the very positive things about living here, you get the housing is cheap, so you can buy a nice 3-4 bedroom house, raise your family there on a dentist's salary. That should be a draw for dentists, not a place where it's impossible to hire a dentist. Male life expectancy in Stranraer West is 69.6. 69.6 is really low. National average is 84. So imagine someone my age, someone born in 1964, worked hard their whole life, paid into the system, retires at 67 and then drops dead 2.5 years later. They paid in for 51 years, they get paid back for 2 years. That feels like a rip-off. And that's the average man in Stranraer West. Life expectancy can be hard to change because people get set in their ways. If someone drinks, smokes and hasn't seen a vegetable in decades, it costs them time on this earth. Most people understand this but find it hard to change. The Fed Up Cafe is doing great work in helping people get at least one healthy hot meal a day. It's adding time and, crucially, time spent in reasonable health to its regulars. We can and should develop healthy strategies, perhaps particularly for the younger people, so that they don't go into this low life expectancy lifestyle.
So that's us past 5 minutes. You want to wrap up for me, please?
So on health, we need to do a lot around public health, and that's where my vision of doing a lot of community projects can really help, because the NHS tends to be an illness service, not a health service. It treats you after something's gone wrong. We really need to push that side of it, and that's something I hope to do. And that's where I'll leave it on health.
Thank you, Simon. I'll give you a quick break and I'll riff for a wee second. So folks, I hope that you're enjoying this so far. I'm hoping that you find it useful. We've got more candidates coming in following episodes. The aim of the game here is to have you fully aware of who your candidates are by the time you come to vote next week. I'm not here to put anything in your mind. It's for our candidates to give you their version of what they think Stranraer needs. And are you ready for the next question, Simon?
I am.
Not a problem. So we're moving on to item 3, which is Stranraer on the Rins education. What is your strategy for ensuring high quality, equitable education for all learners in Stranraer on the Rins, and how would you specifically support schools to meet the diverse needs of local students?
So I'll start with the primary schools. The primary schools in Scotland are excellent. I look after 2 kids when they're, quite regularly, a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. And they've absolutely blossomed since coming to Scotland from Oxfordshire. The primary school takes an interest, takes a protectiveness, and is much more supportive of the children than they're used to. And they've really flourished in it. They aren't angels, things happen, but the school's been dealing with it very effectively. That's over in near Ecclefechan, but that's something that I want to find out and make sure we can sustain here. And again, with the schools, it's really important that the council doesn't get in the way of what the teachers are doing. The teachers are doing really good work, and we need to make sure that the education department is working with them to help get the best education for the children and to look out for the children's well-being. Child poverty is a big issue in Stranraer, and I think it's very important that the children have a freedom from worrying about not having enough stuff, not having pens and paper, not having food. I think it's very important that the children feel like they're secure, they're comfortable, and they can learn. Moving on to Stranraer Academy, the secondary school is, again, by all accounts, it's doing very well, and that's something I would support. I think that there's an occasional problem with antisocial behaviour, but I think the school's dealing with that very well, and that seems to be very much in hand. DG College is doing very well, and again, I think that's something, they're very proactive. I was at a meeting with SSDA, that's the South of Scotland Destination Alliance, and they've been working with the college to help kids into the tourist and hospitality industry. So there's a lot of jobs there that people can go straight into from college, and the education they get, the training they get at the college is putting them into careers. I think industry-aligned education in general, I think it's very easy in school to get slightly detached from what you're doing. Now, I used to be a careers advisor, and I think careers should happen earlier, and the children should be thinking when they're 12, 13, 14, oh, I could do this, oh, actually, I really want to do this, and having that conversation within themselves and within other people, so they start thinking, yeah, I've got possibilities, I can do stuff. Sometimes I think it's quite good to just look around and you see the street, you see, oh, there's a policeman there, there's a bus going past. Could I be a bus driver? Could I be a policeman? There's someone on telly, could I be an actor? So having a free-flowing approach to careers is really important. I read recently that young people entering the workforce can expect to do 15 different jobs in 6 different professions. This old idea that you train as a teacher and you're a teacher forever, it doesn't look like that's going to be the future for many people. Whether it's burnout or whether it's structural redundancy, a lot of times a career that people have set their heart on doesn't work out. What we need is agile, flexible children who are expecting to be able to hop different careers. Sometimes you make a real commitment, like being a doctor or a lawyer, but again, it shouldn't be devastating if you can't find work in the career that you'd set your heart on. We need people to be open. One of the tragedies of the industrial restructuring of the 1980s was that so many people were only able to do one thing. So when they closed the coal miners couldn't do another job. And so you had people at 40 who never worked again. We will regularly have that. AI looks like it's going to do that to people. So we can't send 18-year-olds out into the workforce expecting to be mechanics and then finding out that electric cars don't have carburetors, spark plugs or anything to work on. So they're not really needed.
We're at 5 minutes if you want to sum up.
So the young people are our future prosperity, they're our future hope, they're the people we love. We need to make sure that education and possibility is something that people are enjoying, they're loving, they're excited about, and leads to great futures for them.
Thank you, Simon. Moving on to our 4th topic of this evening, Stranraer on the Rin's transport and infrastructure. In your view, what are the most critical transport and infrastructure needs first round the rinse, and what specific actions would you pursue to improve connectivity access across the area?
I'm going to start by picking up on that word connectivity, because it's not just transport. We need the infrastructure of good broadband, good Wi-Fi. We need to be able to go into a building, and just because we're inside a building, the internet and the phone should not stop working. We need to be able to have storms, and just because there's a storm or a power cut, we should not be cut off. If we're going to have people working in the digital economy, they need to be able to work, and they need to be able to access stuff and all the other things people use the internet for, play video games if they like, but that needs to work, and that needs to be much more resilient and robust. So coming back to transport, we need the multimodal transport hub that's currently in the pipeline. We need each type of transport to work with people. So walking should be safe with pavements that aren't full of cracks and broken bricks. That's very much a council job. If there's a broken pavement that bothers you, there's a site on the council to report that. Wheeling should be designed with wheelchair users. Nothing about us without us, they say in the disabled movement, because people keep doing stuff for wheelchair users, and then the wheelchair user comes to use it and they can't use it because they don't fit, or the wheelchair doesn't go up the slope or whatever. We need to make sure that we go around with wheelchair users and hear what they're saying, whether it's vans parked on pavement, drop curbs that don't line up with the drop curb on the other side of the road, all sorts of things that you wouldn't do if you were with a wheelchair user and they're there laughing at you. We need to work on cycling. In Dumfries, we've got a project called Missing Links, which has been very successful. The idea of this project, and I like the name Missing Links, anything humorous gets me, is you have a bit of cycle lane, and then it stops suddenly, and you're on the road fighting with lorries, and then after a couple of minutes you find another bit of cycle lane. But there's broken links between all these bits of cycle lane. So the Missing Links project is quite simply join up all the cycle lanes so you can cycle in the cycle lane all the way through. Building on that, I would also like to see safe, segregated cycle paths for the kids so that children can cycle to school. I think cycling is amazing for children. It gives them independence to get to school, but most parents I know won't let their kids fight for space on the roads with lorries and trucks. It's just not safe. Can't expect parents to do that. If you want your kids to be able to get to school independently, in many cases cycling is the only option, and it has to be separate cycle paths. We are going to have parking decriminalisation. That's a fancy word for saying we are going to have traffic wardens, and it's expected to come next year. I think that's going to be quite difficult. I think people should be able to drive into town. They should feel comfortable parking their car. There are going to be rules. The dusty signs that are saying you can only park here for 2 hours will suddenly become activated, and people who are there for 2 hours and a half hour might find themselves with a ticket. So that has to be done with great sensitivity, but also I think that often, as I mentioned, parking is really selfish and really nasty. I saw someone park in the bus lane, and the bus driver had to stop in the road because he couldn't get in the bus stop. So he parked in where the bus needs to go. The bus driver had to stop in the road. Someone overtook the bus on the wrong side of the road, and an oncoming car nearly hit them. And that's just because that selfish person couldn't go 20 yards further up the road and park legally in a safe space. So there's really bad parking. People nicking the disabled space means that the person who's got the appointment at the hospital or at the dentist can't make their appointment because they drive up, they can't park, they have to drive home. By the time they call the dentist, it's too late to do anything. So it's hurting so many things if people park terribly. So I will sum up now before Andrew asks me to. I didn't cover the roads, though the trunk roads are really important. I come here from Dumfries, I travel at least once a week, and you don't need me to tell you the trunk roads suck. If you get stuck behind a tractor or a lorry, then it's a very long journey and quite tedious. We need the roads dualled as far as possible. I think as well we need to be quite savvy with our monetary approach to this. So basically we should put a low bid on land alongside the road, and then when it becomes available, like say, there's a 20 grand piece of land and we offer 12, when it becomes available, maybe the farmer says, do you know what, you can have it for 12, I don't want to go through the whole market thing.
Time to sum up, Simon.
So good trunk roads, good cycle paths, pavements belong to people walking and wheeling. That's my pitch on transport.
It's funny, Simon, I know the feeling when you're in the middle of a debate or in the middle of a conversation and you just want to say that a little bit more, but you have to get cut off, unfortunately.
That's quite right.
I know the feeling. So moving on to our fifth topic of this evening, Stranraer on the Rins community. How do you propose to empower and collaborate with the local community groups, charities and trusts to strengthen the social fabric of Stranraer on the Rins and address issues like social isolation and local amenity provision?
So I have a background in community development. I was 3 years on Lawburn Community Council, which is the community council for the centre of Dumfries. I was also a director of a charity there, Dumfries Partnership Action Group, that's trying to coordinate lots of different development projects, and I helped recruit the original town board chair. So I've done lots of projects there. As the secretary of the Lawburn Community Council, I did their website, I reorganised the grant system, and I got I got grants to people who never could have got through a complicated process. I really was the bridge into the community for money and for support that was there that we had to give them. I'm very much looking forward to the community councils, working with the community councils here. I've already been to Lockens Community Council and Cairn Ryan Community Council's party, the Halloween party, and so those links will be really important to me. And I see community councils as the voice of their area. I'm looking forward to Stranraer Community Council on Monday. So that's very much something I want to plug into, and that's how I will understand a lot of community. So you're very welcome to approach me. I'll always be approachable, but you can also approach your community councillor and get the community council to pressure your councillors. Regarding other community organisations, we've got some brilliant ones like the Development Trust, Incredible Edibles, there's the Fed Up Cafe. These are really important, and I want to do grant applications for people who want to do more of this kind of work. Volunteering is really powerful. A friend of mine, he was recovering from mental illness, and part of his recovery route has been volunteering, and that's gave him the rigid day that he needed to structure his recovery. So he goes into work, he understands where he has to be, he's working through that, and it's been so powerful for his health. I think a lot of people, when they're recovering from something or when they need to come out of isolation, go into volunteering, and it's really productive, and they give a ton as well. So I think that we really do need to build the community based on, if I can get some more projects going, then the people working for these projects, the volunteers benefit, the people working getting paid benefit, and the community, the services they provide can be targeted to exactly what we need fixing here. I really like Stranraer Local Place Plan. It was one of the first ones, it's one of the best funded ones, and it's already getting results. We've had about £750,000 come in on the back of the local place plans in grant money, and we're going to get more. So that's something I'm looking forward to enthusiastically support. I've actually written 2 local place plans, or helped write 2 local place plans myself, so I know all about the process, but all about the opportunity that they can bring. I work for Citizens Advice. Dumfries and Galloway Systems Advice Service. So I'm very used to helping people, working with people, talking to people who are in very difficult circumstances, bereavement, relationship breakdown, abuse, some survivors of domestic violence, people absolutely drowning in debt. And I'm used to listening sympathetically. I'm what they call a triager. Triage advisor is a proper title. So I understand what the issue is, help figure out who can best help them, and signpost them and send them on their way to get the proper help. And that's something I think I'll be able to do as a counsellor as well, because people come to counsellors with very similar problems that they come to systems advice with. I believe that a community can build trust and respect. We had a lovely example where some kids were doing some gardens. I think the school kind of semi-made them do this gardening, but they're there doing this gardening, and it's kind of shaping up. It's looking quite nice, and they started getting comments from passers-by saying, "Oh, you've done a really good job here. This is amazing. Well done. Thank you for this." Now, the kids commented to the person running it, "We've never been spoken to like that in our lives." These are 13, 14-year-old kids, and they were blown away by the power of community. So I can see Andrew looking at, telling me to stop talking. So
Do you want to sum up?
I will sum up by saying community is amazing, and I'm really looking forward to building things with the community. And if you're listening to this and you want to do something, whoever gets in, you knock on, you give them an email or stop them in the street and make something happen.
That's right, Simon. Moving on to our last question of the evening. It's the candidate's pitch, or our elevator pitch for those in other walks of life. You have one final 5-minute elevator pitch to the people of Stranraer and the Rins. Why are you the definitive right candidate to represent the ward, and what unique commitment will you make to ensure their voices are heard?
So a councillor is a job in 3 parts. So the first, as I see it anyway, so the first part is to stand up for Stranraer. So if somebody at the town hall says, in Dumfries, says, "We're thinking of cutting a bus in Stranraer, and we're also thinking of cutting a bus in Dumfries, which one should we cut?" It's a job of Andrew, of me, of all councillors to fight like wounded lynxes for Stranraer, because that is what we're supposed to do, and that is what we should do, and that is what I will do. So that's an important part of Stranraer. I think I can be effective at that. I'm quite diplomatic, but I'm also quite determined. So I think I'm quite good at representing causes that I believe in. That's one part of the job. The second part of the job is the constituency work. So people come up to you and say, "My roof's leaking and the housing association won't fix it," or we've had one recently where the crossing patrol at Lewis Street, the person suddenly quit, but the council's been really slow to replace them. So it's our job as councillors to really get on the cases of the people who need to do something about that and make sure they do it. That's something that's very similar to the work I do at Systems Advice. So what I would be doing is something that I'm already doing. In fact, if you've called Systems Advice recently, Dumfries and Galloway Systems Advice, you may well have spoken to me already. So I can do that, I'm good at it, and I know just who to talk to. I've met so many amazing people, amazing resources, where I've been referring them to people and asking, "Can you help this person?" And oh yes, they can. The things that my colleagues can do with debt, you would not believe. So that's something I feel very comfortable with. The final part of the job, and I think that I particularly bring this aspect to it, I'm a natural born form filler. Some people are good at piano, some people are good at football. Me, give me a form to fill in. So what I can do is I can do grant applications, I can help people through technical things like participation requests we did, local place plans, negotiating with the councils, checking in detail what we can achieve, and I'm really looking forward to working with the community, to drawing people out, to motivating people, to inspire people, and say, oh yeah, we could do a project. We could like rewild a field. We could set up a centre for women who are fleeing violence. We could. I saw this one the other day. There's a pantry thing, and it's Scottish Government money, and they've got all these pantries to help people in food poverty, and it's supposed to be a more dignified system than a food bank. And there's a little map you can see, and there's like 30 or 40 of them, and they're in a little line across the centre of Scotland, with none north of Glasgow and none south of Glasgow. So that's Scottish Government money. I'll try and get some of that here. We can get these projects going, and it's part of the impetus towards building a more prosperous Stranraer. It's particularly part of the vision of a Stranraer where people are less unhealthy, we don't have people dying so young, we don't have people in food poverty, and I think that's something. There's good work being done here, there's good work being done in Scotland nationally, and there's more to do, and it's doable, it's achievable. So even if you don't vote for me, even if I don't get this, have a look at that. If you fancy doing something, if you fancy changing your situation, it's there. I'll just say as well, like Scotland is doing really well. There's an Oxford geography professor called Danny Dorling who's taken an interest in child poverty in Scotland because it's different between Scotland and England. It's so different that children in England are now shorter than children in Scotland because they don't get fed as well. It's so different that there are kids in England who, babies in England who've never been washed in warm water because the parents can't afford to heat the water. We aren't at English levels. We aren't at great levels, where it's about 20% child poverty here, which is something that we really need to challenge. But Scotland is a really, really strong country. So Scotland is a place to be proud of.
You're under your 5 minutes. Would you like to sum up?
So, how would I empower the local community? As I say, it's for you guys. I mean, I can say I can fill the form for you, but if nobody will run the project, not going to happen. So you empower the community by doing it yourself. Some of you need to get off your bums and make a change happen.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. So folks, there we have Simon Jones, your SNP candidate for next week's by-election on Thursday the 20th of November to replace Wally Scobie, an ex-colleague of mine who's now retired, and I think many of you know him, we'll miss him, but we're looking for who's going to fill his boots. So folks, thanks for joining this episode of Beyond the Leaflet, your insight into our candidates for next week. Thank you.